So let's get into the first step to recovering from this. And it's what I just admitted to you. We have to get into reality. We are detached from our core self. Most of us don't know that. We have to recognize that our parents used us for their benefit. Man, that is a tough pill to swallow. Because I know my parents adored me. I mean, I have some great memories. And I feel tremendous love from them. And that's the confusion. Is there were moments they authentically and correctly were perfect in their love as a parent. But then there's the flip side, where they just completely used you. I'll never forget my mom being so drunk that she could barely stand. And I won't do it because it'll traumatize you. But her staggering there and her trying to look me in the eyes and just slurring, saying, you know, Kenny, the next time I want a drink, will you just hug me? That's enmeshment. My mother just made me responsible for her drinking and whether she stayed sober or not. That's confusing. It makes me omnipotent. My God, my mom really thinks I have the power to save her and that my hugs are so good. What a wonderful thing to hear from a mother. My hugs are so powerful that I can keep you sober. And then my mom would be sober 4 to 6 weeks and then in a walking coma for 7 to 10 days. And so to recognize, oh, I'm not that powerful. So how in the heck could I ever pick a woman when I'm raised with that confusion? I wouldn't know how. That doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make my mom bad. It's just truth. And so we have to get into reality that our parents used us because my mom didn't know how, no one taught her how to take care of herself. And so my mom manipulated and used me for her benefit. Our parents see us as a doll that they can mold into what they needed and wanted. And this is the shameful and embarrassing part. Then they gaslit us. And they did this by saying that they did everything they could for us out of love and in our best interest. Do you see the double bind we're placed in? Because it's true. They tried their hardest. And so we're caught. Did you hear, even in me describing my mother, there's an element of me letting her, I mean, there's truth. She did the best she could, but there's a hunger in me to let her off the hook. That's the gaslighting. Because I was my mom's favorite. I was totally treated that way. And then what my mom would do is my mom got sober the last 25 years of her life. Like, she had tremendous courage. She really did a lot of work. But even sober, any little, grievance, my mom would just go, oh, it's because I'm such a terrible mother. And I just try, oh my God, I'm so bad. Like, she'd just go into this, really grandiose. I'm such a terrible, breakdown crying and the chin quiver. And like, it was almost theatrical. Well, do you see, there's the gaslighting. Boom, let me off the hook. Don't make me responsible. You're caught in this shame and embarrassment and confusion nonstop. My father, I wrote about this in my book, how I wrote him a letter when I was in college asking, I just want to learn how to be your friend. Now, I also talk in the book how that was manipulative. But at the time, there was genuine, I wanted to get to know my father. He didn't respond. I come home from college. I'm staying with them. It's about 2-3 weeks. I'm there. Nothing. He hasn't spoken a word about this incredibly vulnerable letter where I was like, Dad, I know nothing about you. I don't know what your dreams were, what you like. I don't know you because I didn't. And finally, my dad comes up one day he worked in the basement. I'm standing in the kitchen. He says, Kenny, I got your letter, and you just need to get over that. Gaslit. They won't even acknowledge their perfect imperfections, that they made mistakes. That's what's so crippling about the enmeshed dynamic. Do you see shame? I'm stepping up, asking, Dad, I want a connection. Boom. Embarrassment. How dare you try to get to know me? Confusion. Wait a minute, you're my father. I'm supposed to love you. My mother, same thing. We must get into reality of the manipulative games that they played, whether they intended to or not. The truth is, they did. And our avoidance of that, of accepting that truth, is the loss of self. We choose to make excuses and minimize, suppress, repress, and deny how absolutely shameful, embarrassing, hurtful, and confusing all of those moments were. We won't accept the full weight of them. We let them off the hook. We are staying out of reality and staying enmeshed with them, and we have to get into truth and reality that we are now doing it to ourselves, and we must stop. That leads to step 2. For us to reclaim ourselves and discover who we really are, we need to develop our own morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables. We have to, again, get into reality and realize we gave ourselves away and we adopted their beliefs, their values, their needs and wants, their negotiables and non-negotiables. The way we look at the world, politically, socially, in almost every case, is a mirror of theirs. Now, there are those black sheep who did the complete opposite. Well, that complete opposite is you're still enmeshed with them. Those who went the opposite route, I'll never be like them. Do you see you're still enmeshed? Because it's still not authentically you. You just used hate and spite to go the opposite direction. Well, they still own you. That's still not, you're not authentic. Just because you want the complete opposite does not, it is actually a sign you are enmeshed. You still didn't make your own choice. You just went, I'll do anything but your choice. Not, is there merit to that choice? Well, maybe not as far as my parents went, but this has, part of it does. Do you see there's no choice there? There's no individuality. It's just a polar extreme. Well, that means you're still enmeshed. You haven't found yourself. And so we must develop our own morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables. Now the process to do that I can't do in this video, but luckily for you, I've already done it. Well, I have masterclasses, but for those who don't want to invest in themselves yet, there's 3 videos under my codependence playlist titled Codependence Recovery, and then I can't remember the exact names, but you'll see morals and values, needs and wants. Just go to the codependence playlist and look for Codependence Recovery. You'll see those 3 videos. They're right next to each other, okay? They will teach you how to discover your morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables. Now, to help you with the self-deception and denial that you're out of reality and to accept these truths of how you've taken on their beliefs, how going in the polar opposite and being the black sheep, you're still enmeshed with them. Go to my codependent or my playlist titled Self-Deception/Denial. That will teach you how the denial and self-deception process works, all of those videos in there. So it'll help you get into reality so you can reclaim yourself. Step number 3 is learn to set your own boundaries. We have to critically assess all of the choices we make. Am I making this because it's, and setting this boundary or pursuing this hobby, career, whatever it is, because it's what I want or what they want? See, that's what I realized. I played 2 pro sports to get my father's attention. I was very good at them. That's why when you learn about the worst day cycle and how all this works, listen to every single athlete. You're going to see they're all just reliving their trauma. Very few of them actually want to play the sport. That's why so many struggle post-career. Because just like me, they're just reliving pain. The act of, listen to how they talk about hitting a shot or tackling somebody or whatever. All they're describing is the pain they experienced in childhood. Now that doesn't make it bad. It doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. But that's an enmeshed dynamic. That's somebody reliving their trauma against themselves, and they don't know it. It's true for your kids. your kids' interest in all these different things. They're just exercising our perfect imperfections as parents. That's how it works. Again, we need to get into reality that we are perfectly imperfect as parents, and we are doing these things to our children as well. Even if we've been highly educated on how to be a parent, we are human, and it is human to make mistakes as a parent. Okay? Also, when it comes to setting boundaries, we have to recognize that we will tend to either fall in the pleasing mode or avoidance mode and use power. And so are your boundaries, or lack of boundaries, about pleasing others? Or do you set boundaries or avoid people to exercise power? Remember, most of the ways we exercise our enmeshment is through disempowerment or false empowerment. Which way are you doing it? Are you boundary-less? That would be disempowered. Are you controlling, manipulative, angry, detached, career-focused? That would be avoidance. Okay? So that's the falsely empowered. All right? Step number 4. We need to seek out hobbies and activities for ourselves. And there are 2 keys to seeking out hobbies and activities. The first one is this: find a hobby and activity that has no accolade or no approval in it. The falsely empowered, they pursue activities, careers, interests because they need the acceptance and the approval and the accolades. That's why they do it. That's the enmeshed dynamic, because they couldn't get it from their parent. That's what I did. That's what anybody who chooses success, like all of the uber successful people, that's an enmeshed dynamic where they're falsely empowered. They're looking for accolades and approval outside of themselves by their achievements. So find hobbies and activities where there's no accolade and no approval other than from within yourself. That's for the falsely empowered. Now, for the disempowered, they give themselves away. This is the people pleaser type. So most times in their activities, they're getting trampled on. So they need to find activities that bring them joy. I will never forget this. When I first started healing from my enmeshment, my counselor asked me to make a list of things that brought me joy, hobbies and activities. I came back the next week. Nothing but one thing: hitting golf balls. Because I hadn't played golf. I played pro hockey, got married, did other things. I ended up playing pro golf later. But that was the only thing. I had no sense of anything other than sports that would bring me joy. Nothing. No outside interest. I'll never forget. I was playing hockey, and we did this like 2-3 week tour through Europe. It was Czechoslovakia, Sweden, Finland, and on off days, the team would go sightseeing. People are seeing castles. I have pictures, everyone else's pictures, but that whole trip, when everyone would go sightseeing, I would sleep on the bus. I didn't know I could pursue anything outside of hockey. I literally didn't. That's how much I lost my soul, gave my soul away to try and get my parents to love me. I went to I went on one sightseeing excursion. I think it was either Sweden or Finland. The bus was parked outside of a museum. I went inside, and their fallen leaders, they would save their army uniforms, and there was one who had been shot, the bullet hole. I just remember standing over, looking at that case with the bullet hole. That was the only excursion I went on. I had no concept of who I was. Now, you may be, if you're falsely empowered, then you're doing everything and anything. But do you have joy in it? And why are you doing it? What are you trying to get out of it? Can you just do it for the sake of joy? Probably not. Can you not do it? That's the other thing. Can you sit still and not do anything? That's step 4, seeking out hobbies and activities that are meant to bring us joy and aren't there to seek accolades, accomplishment, or approval. Number 5, develop emotional mastery. For the disempowered, quit giving your power away. Quit giving your feelings away. Quit making excuses for your parents. Quit making excuses for your spouse or your partner who's abusive or your children, whatever it may be, career. Quit giving your power away. Your feelings are yours. You created them. That's the other thing to the disempowered. All of these people, the politically correct people and the cancel culture who's running around telling everyone, you can't use that word or phrase, that's a microaggression, you're hurting me, whether this is transgender, any of them, doesn't matter, pick all of them. All of the social causes where they're trying to control language, this is a disempowered, codependent, most likely also enmeshed. They are giving their power away, asking the world to solve their problem. That's what they're doing. Nobody makes us feel anything unless we allow. And the reason those words make us feel, think of it. Think of what all these social causes are. They're going against the norms of society. Well, what did their parents think about them going against the norms of society? That they were bad kids. They were shamed, right? So instead of healing the shame from their parents, they're asking the world to heal their shame. They learn to believe. See, ultimately, when we try and control other people's language, thoughts, and beliefs, it's because we haven't healed ourselves. We got sent the message that our thoughts and beliefs about this topic aren't okay. And so ultimately, we feel shame that we have this thought and belief about ourselves. Whether I'm straight, gay, whatever it is, doesn't matter what social cause it is. We got sent the message it's bad to have this belief. And we've never healed that. We've never claimed our authentic self and said, no, this is who I am. And so now we're asking the whole world to do it for us. It's not their job. They can't do it. That's a process only we can recover. And so we need to develop emotional mastery and quit giving our power away. Our feelings are ours. They are not our parents. The politically correct and so-called social conscience people have lost themselves. They are not authentic who they are. And that's why they are caught up in this trap of thinking that others make them think, feel, do, or believe anything. They are stuck in the shame and enmeshment of their childhood. Your feelings are yours. You created them as a child to survive what you went through. Those terrible feelings that you experienced are a result of the caregiving you experienced as a child. Your anger and resentment is at them, not the world. Learn to get into reality about that truth and heal the original pain. Now, to do that, you need to find the source of the original pain. And so my proof to you that this isn't the person sitting across from you or at a college campus or whatever, is when that feeling comes up. When somebody says that disparaging word that you're trying to control and get them not to do, ask yourself, what am I feeling? I'll get to it in a second. What am I feeling? Where in my body do I feel it? And what's my first memory of having this feeling? You're going to trace every single person, you're going to see its childhood. This is the source of the original wounding and enmeshment. This is where you learned this belief that it's bad. All right? Now, you get to make a choice. If you're going to hold on, that feeling that you have, that this is bad and terrible, was placed into you by your caregivers. Now, for the first time, you're aware of it. So you get to choose. Are you going to carry it the rest of your life? Or are you going to assess it and choose your own feeling? That's what's in front of you. Now, to do that, I have made my emotional mastery course free. I used to charge for it, but I realized this is so critical. The world doesn't know emotional mastery that I literally can't charge for it. Because people won't invest in themselves. They get all upset about paying for things, and that's not about me. That's about them. They don't think they're worth it because their parents say, oh, you can't invest in yourself. You have to be enmeshed with me. How dare you spend money on trying to make yourself better and reclaiming your authentic self? No, no, no. And I always find, because people always, when they look at personal development, they not coin it. What's the right word? Man, it frustrates me when my brain does this to me. they define it as a cost. Isn't that funny? Reclaiming our authentic self is a cost. That's the shame and enmeshment right there. Oh my God, that costs so much. Wow. Yeah, reclaiming myself, getting rid of the shame and everything is a cost. Like, that's how detrimental the messages are, that I'm bad. I cost. Putting up with me as a child was a cost in this family. That was the message I got sent. I'll never forget that. Picking out football equipment. I was so excited. I loved equipment. It looked cool. And I'd grown. I got all new stuff. So we tried shoulder pads, helmet, everything. Man. And they'd come out with this new style helmet. I was like the first one to get, it was just the coolest thing ever. And I'm all excited. And finally, I turned to my dad and he's like, well, is that it? Do you need anything else? Oh, that's when I learned I was a cost. I was a burden. From that moment on, man, I was silent. I learned to pay for and do everything on my own because I was not going to be a cost in my Father's eyes. And so that's what we're all going through. And so I had to learn. That's why I had money problems, bankruptcy, because I always saw myself as a cost. That's why now, when I go out to eat or something, like I give 30, 50, 70% tips. Like, I just love to give the money. I'm like, money will come back. I don't know how, somehow, some way, but I'm not a cost. I'm an investment. And when I take myself out to eat, I'm investing in myself. And so the tip is an investment in me. It's as much, it's not so much about their service as I'm worth it. I'm worth it. A tip to me shows my worth for myself. Because what do we mostly do? I used to look at menus and go, well, that's $13.72. Well, I really want that. That's $14.95. Another $1. I didn't think I was worth that extra $1. And oh my God, a Coke, you add that, it's $2.70 now or maybe $3 or $4 at some restaurants. I'll just have water. To heck with that. I want the Coke. I want all of it because I'm worth it now. That's a belief I decided to change. I didn't think I was worth it. That's why I always struggled and was broke and bankrupt. Well, it's not that I'm filthy rich. I don't have all that much money, but I don't care. I believe it will come and take care of itself. And so I invest in myself and I tip big because I'm worth it. That's how I see it. Now, that may not be your belief around tipping and money. You get to decide that for yourself. But do you see? My Father sent the message I was a cost. I looked at that belief. I can stay enmeshed and believe my Father, or I can choose my own belief. What I decide to believe is, hell no. I buy clothes and all these different things because they're an investment in me and I'm worth every penny. And so are you. Quit defining things that matter to you as a cost. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with counselors and programs because I'm worth the investment. Whatever it is that matters to you, you may not, personal development and reclaiming yourself may not matter to you. That's fine. I don't need it to matter to you. Whatever it is that matters to you, start investing in it because you're worth it. Every single penny. All of it. Step number 6, grieve. To do this, I encourage you to watch my Worst Day Cycle playlist. This will walk you through the process of how to reclaim yourself so that you can grieve yourself. Now, I'm not going to lie. Doing this enmeshment process, it's going to hurt. You're going to hurt because you're dealing with developmental trauma that you have suppressed, minimized, denied, and ignored through giving yourself away, either being the disempowered or the falsely empowered, or like myself, bouncing between the two. Like I realized relationship-wise, I would start as the falsely empowered love avoidant. But as soon as you committed to me, boom, I would become the disempowered love addict. I'd lose myself completely give myself away. But my fear, because of the enmeshment dynamic and my mother and father's manipulation, that's the falsely empowered, very walled off and cautious. But once I felt so-called safe, boom, I dropped here. I couldn't stay me in the middle. I couldn't be moderate and mature. I didn't know how. My whole childhood was a bounce between the two. How would I know? So, learning to let go of those two is going to hurt because these are the only things I know. They're not true. They're false personas. They're adaptive. And so I have to find this. Well, that's going to hurt. It's like an infant being born into the world. Kids cry a lot because it's confusing. Well, I cried a lot too. The world is confusing when you're a so-called adult, should have your SHIT together and you have no clue who you are. And I still have days like that where I wake up and I am completely clueless. The difference is I've woken up clueless enough that I'm like, okay, it's all right. I know what to do to recenter myself. When you're here, you don't. And look at a lot of the comments on my posts. Most people are here. They just lost. Pure panic. No idea how to get to here. Well, to get to here, you have to make an investment in yourself. You have to commit that you want to love yourself. And that requires grieving. You have to remember you were never allowed to be autonomous. You have to let go of the false self and reclaim your authentic and real self. And a big piece of the grief process, what you probably have never done before, is you need to give yourself permission to rage. To rage. That was the toughest part for me, was to actually get in touch with that it's okay to be angry. Because when you give away your life, whether you go falsely empowered or disempowered, do you see what that ultimately means? It's a complete rejection of us. Remember, our parents gaslit us into believing that they did everything for us and they molded us into what they needed. And we did that. We went along with it as a survival mechanism. We had to survive. And so to face that rage brings us into the terror of what it would be, of what we experienced as a child. Here, this is the best way to say it. If you haven't done it, go skydiving. I went skydiving, I don't know, a year ago maybe, and I was all excited. I've dreamed all my life of flying. I had no fear. I don't have much fear of things in my life anyway. I've always been kind of a daredevil because my childhood was so chaotic. It's just filled with fear, and I just learned to deal with it. And so I don't really get afraid. Well, we all get afraid, but I don't get like, oh, I don't want to do that out of fear, which happens to a lot of people. And so I'm all excited and everything. I'm in a great mood, peaceful, like, oh my God, I get to fly. All my life I've wanted to fly. And we get to the edge. And all of a sudden I start to get this feeling, and then we drop. Pure panic. You know, and if you've done it, you know, they let you use the things to kind of guide yourself down. And he was doing that. I said, you need to take these. And he's not kind of listening. I'm like, you need to, and finally I yelled at him, you need to take these or I'll let it go. I had splintered from myself. I had detached. And I didn't trust myself. I was like, I'm going to let these go. And I'm like, but Kenny, you know you can't let them go. You die. Like, but I didn't trust myself. I knew I wasn't present. I was in pure shock and trauma. And I was overwhelmed by the experience. And it took me a while until I got back in my body as when I drove away and on the way home, what had hit me was, oh my God, that free fall, that sheer terror you experience when you free fall, it hit me. That was my childhood. Oh my God, that's what it was like to be a child in my home. Like, see, that's the thing. We're too young to process how difficult all of these things are, and that's why, because we don't have the cognition or the emotional development, we minimize it. Oh, it's not affecting me, Kenny. No, you're wrong. It's not a worst day cycle. No, the narcissist, no. That's the child who's underdeveloped and can't make sense of things, and so their reasoning, try and have a deep discussion with a 6-year-old. Not possible. Why? They don't have the development. Well, how are they going to classify what's going on in their childhood experience at any level of depth? Impossible. And so we're 60 years old and we're still using that same logic to think about our childhood. We're stuck there. We're not in reality. We have a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, 10-year-old, 2-year-old, whatever, developmental trauma happens throughout childhood. And so we are an infant, an adolescent. Our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about what we went through is at that age. There's no reality to it, and the depth and breadth of the enormity of the pain we're experiencing, we don't have the development to process it and share it. That's why most kids with child therapy, it's playing with dolls, it's too big. And so that's what brought home to me is now I'm an adult. I've been working on this for decades. And I realized as I fell, oh my God, this is what it was like to be a child growing up. Holy wow, like it freaked me out. Oh my God, now I get it. This is what it was like to find my mom passed out on the toilet. This is what it was like to be yelled at by my father. This is what it was like that my mother, we couldn't make a sound because she'd sleep for 3 hours every day. Like, being kicked out of the house, go play, Saturday, 7 o'clock in the morning, don't come home until dinner. Just all the abandonment, neglect, over and over and over and over. That's how terrifying it was. That's what we need to do. Well, that's grief. Think of how sad that is. We need to mourn that, and we need to rage. We need to rage. Now, I'm not saying you have to rage at your parents if they're still alive. Those are individualized cases that need to be dealt with individually. But we need to give ourselves permission to get into truth about what we experienced. Finally, number 7, most likely this should be done with a professional. You can do some of it on your own, but you're here. And your pain brought you here. And you're stuck in your pain. You're not attached to yourself. You're enmeshed. How can this child, who's never learned what a true healthy relationship is or feels like, can get here? They can't teach themselves because we're still a child, even if we're 70. We need somebody to teach us how to get here, to do the role that our parents, although they wanted to, again, I firmly believe that all they ever cared about was getting us here, but they weren't able to. It doesn't have to be me, but you need a professional. I don't know how other professionals look at their job, but this is how I see mine. My job is to provide the child and each one of my clients the support they never had. That for the first time in their life, they have somebody who's always on their side. Like anything out of my mouth, any suggestion I make is in the best interest of that little child inside of them that was never heard, never noticed, never registered, and never given a voice. That's all I'm ever doing is supporting that child. That's it. Now, there are many ways to do that, but that's my role. This child needs safety. Well, if we're stuck here and we've never experienced safety, how can we get here? We need a model, a teacher that shows us how to have relationship safely. Again, it doesn't have to be me, but find a professional. You can't, this enmeshment dynamic, it's too shame-based, embarrassing, and confusing to navigate on your own. You need somebody to help you. I beg you, please Invest in yourself. You're worth it. You deserve support. You deserve to feel safe. That's the biggest thing. You deserve safety.